All right, hello. Looks like we are now live. So, let's see here. Volume a little bit. No, maybe I think I could play some jazz while we're getting started here. Let's get some. Let's see here what we got. Let's play some Bill Evans. There we are, Bill. Am I going while I send out the notification saying we're online? If you're just getting the notification sent out right now saying that we're now live. Okay, do we have anyone here? Looks like we've got one person so far. So whoever's here, please say hello. Turn down Bill. I haven't played in the background a little bit. Hopefully that's not annoying or coming in distorted or anything like that. This is the first time where I've tried to run music at the same time as the uh, live chat. So hopefully that's not egregious distortion or anything like that. Okay, so who do we have here? We got two live right now. Do say hello. Hope everyone is doing all right. Hope everyone is safe. Hope everyone is healthy, and that their friends and loved ones are, say, still unaffected by the current health crisis. Now, apparently, beginning today, the governor is um, opening up the country again a little bit here and there. Myself, although I would love to go out again and do things, I worry whether it's premature. I think I'm going to try to continue my practice of quarantine for um, until I get more of a kind of like an announcement from the health community, from say from WHO and whatnot as to whether it's time to do that, and that's when I'm going to do it. You might be facing some blowback on that if it's not too early, but I think the governor is under a lot of pressure to do it for economic reasons. To say a lot of people are trying, I think, to kind of like force things to go back as they were. Again, I think rather prematurely. We have got to weather this out a little bit longer, I think. But who knows? Might work out all right. We'll see. I I certainly don't hope to be proven right. I certainly do not hope to be proven right. I hope whatever actions are taken by people whose power and authority far exceeds mine will be the right call. All I can do is try to influence, say, the opinion of my fellow citizens the best I can. But these are things that thankfully are out of my hands. I certainly don't want responsibility for what's going on right now. I certainly don't want to take charge and all that. Okay, so who do we have here? Who is in the chat right now? We got one person. It keeps going back between one and two. Now, a lot of people are having internet connection issues. That's what I was having myself last Tuesday. My internet just Tuesday and a little bit Wednesday too, but say the internet just kept going on and off. So that's why I decided, yeah, everyone's doing a quiz. Probably not a good idea to just throw more material at them. So for both of our classes, for both critical thinking and ethics, we don't have that much left to do. I think that for ethics, I will spend the remainder of the semester kind of like preparing everyone for the final exam. I'll do a little bit of Aristotle. I'll do a little bit of Aristotelian ethics because it's one of the it's kind of like one of the demands that I would have to do. Let's say if I'm teaching an ethics course, I would have to do Aristotelian ethics. I was saving it for after Kant because that's how it comes in the Rachel's book. That virtue ethics follows Kant's deontological ethics. Now, I think I can see one of the reasons why we do. Because Aristotle's virtue ethics, at least say as it is elaborated by Aristotle himself, not necessarily by every virtue ethicist, but at least by Aristotle, there is already a lot of overlap between him and the utilitarians. Say the utilitarians and Aristotle are operating on the idea that say that we all basically have one goal, and that's happiness. Let's say that we're all striving towards, say, as much happiness as we can get. Now, for the utilitarians, say they qualify happiness in terms of pleasure. Aristotle, it's not actually all that far away from how it is in Aristotle, but it's not it's not quite as reductive as talking about, say, pleasure in the way that the utilitarians talk about pleasure. Certainly for the utilitarians, say it's not simply a matter of kind of like a momentary elation. They're not strict hedonists. as they are sometimes accused, but sometimes they are. They are said with this one. But when it comes to Aristotle's idea of happiness, happiness for Aristotle is not so much kind of like a feeling of pleasure as it is an actual full realization of what we are as human beings. That it is, say, the kind of the maximization, or it's not maximization, the optimal um, condition for us to be what we are. And according to Aristotle, there is such a thing as human nature. That we, as human beings, have a certain kind of consistent essence or quality about us. And when we are fully attentive to the development of that essence and quality, in realizing it in our own persons, realizing it in our lives, that is when we really achieve our full potential, the full potential that the essence provides for us as human beings. So for Aristotle, it's wrapped a little bit more up in a philosophy of human nature than for the utilitarians. At least kind of like a very strong kind of like metaphysical argument about who we are as human beings. So there would be a little bit of continuation between Aristotle and the utilitarians when it comes to say something like what are we trying to aim for in our lives and what we are trying to aim for in ethical action. So I can understand why the Rachels would kind of like break that up from talking about say Mill and the utilitarians to talking about Kant because it can get a little monotonous. Always talking about happiness and consequences because for for Aristotle, say it is also a matter of say of, uh, of, of say consequentialism, factoring into say how we are going to evaluate our actions. Intentions are important for Aristotle, but it is say intending towards say achieving the right sort of end, much as it is for John Stuart Mill, how John Stuart Mill tried to incorporate intentions into utilitarianism. It was, say, incorporated in such a way where we're saying, you know, what justifies having the right intentions is that, say, having the right intentions will ultimately realize the best sorts of results for us. For Kant, as we saw, it's strictly the intention. It has nothing to do with whether we bring about any further happiness or so on. Now, Kant is, as I said many times before, Kant is not going to say say good results are a bad thing. He's not going to say don't enjoy them, just ignore them, and so on. You know, don't try to even kind of like think about them. He's not saying that. Again, he's only saying that we're trying to find like a basis for objective ethical action. Say we don't look at intention, we don't look at consequences, we look at intentions. But say if we can get say more justice out of a world in which we try to focus more on say the development of the goodwill, that unconditional good towards say an objective standard for ethics. If more justice can be got out of it, so much the better. Yeah, again, Kant is not going to say what ultimately justifies this as, say, the best ethical philosophy. What ultimately justifies it is not that we get the best outcome out of it, but if a good outcome comes out of it, you know, if we have a society that is more infused with justice and fairness and so forth, because of the fact that we are treating everyone not as a means to an end ultimately, but as, say, human beings that deserve respect, that deserve to be treated as autonomous moral agents with intrinsic worth and value, independent of what kind of benefits and uses I could get out of them. Again, so much the better. But that's not the point, according to Kant. Now, Kant has a political philosophy too, and he's a very important political philosopher. Unfortunately, we can't get too much into that, but it still is going to be, say, stemming from, say, his considerations in practical philosophy. Say the considerations that have come like, what do we already presuppose about ourselves in action, and what would ultimately um, what kind of like society would ultimately best uh, best meet those assumptions without contradicting itself, without kind of like failing to follow through on being a society based off of an objective standard uh, for acting, objective standard for proper behavior and so forth. So the political philosophy is largely an extension of his ethics in a strong way. But a little bit more kind of like focused on say what kind of society would best realize these kinds of ends in our action. Not kind of like an end in the sense of say the best kind of consequence, but kind of like the best end in the sense that it is say of our intentions actually meeting the target in terms of kind of like fulfilling say the fulfilling the kind of like outline for correct action for correct kind of like societal building that we get from looking to reason as a standard and source of our laws and rules and nothing else. Okay, so is anyone here at all? I'm not getting even kind of like a hello from Gabriel Flores or from Kenneth. Let's see here. Uh, yeah, if anyone could say something right now. And when it comes to uh, critical thinking, for critical thinking, say you would just be doing a few more types of formal fallacies. Three more actually: illicit major, illicit minor, and the fallacy of the undistributed middle. Those will be the three last things. They're going to take us back to our old friend, categorical syllogisms. We're gonna have to kind of like make sure that we understand, say, of how these things can actually work out in practical everyday settings. But like I said, say we would be dealing with this quite a bit if you take logic with me. But since it's not strictly a logic class, this is a class on applied logic. We have to see how these rules for determining say whether an argument has failed or not will actually work out in a kind of way that is applicable to our everyday concerns and actions. Like, can you imagine a situation where someone is trying to kind of like convince us to open up the economy, but we realize that they have made a severe flaw in their argument, perhaps even a flaw of illicit major, illicit minor, or the fallacy of the undistributed middle. So, because again, the reason why we're doing this is because, say, when an argument strikes us, when we hear something being said, it can feel like they have supported what they said in a very reasonable, very strong, even in a kind of manner of of logical necessity. But if we analyze what was actually said, if we look very closely into how the parts were brought together, that feeling of them succeeding in supporting their argument was just that, just a feeling. It is rather like it's rather like when you have a dream. You have a dream, and maybe you dreamt up beautiful poem, and remember enough of it when you wake up, and you try to write it down. You say, "This sucks." You know, this isn't Kubla Khan. I'm not. I say I've not managed to achieve the kind of inspiration that Samuel Taylor Coleridge did in his opium-induced dream. No, I only felt that this was a outstanding poem in the dream because I experienced that kind of satisfaction that doesn't have to do with things working out logically, only kind of like maybe things working out dramatically. Because that's how a lot of this works. A lot of it works on a matter, on kind of like a level of aesthetics, on a level of the same way in which, say, we feel like maybe a truth coming from a movie or play or a TV show or something like that. But it doesn't it's not grounded in logical necessity or even grounded on strong evidence. It's grounded on whether it has filled maybe a dramatic, an artistic kind of trajectory, where from in an argument where it should begin and where it should end, that end should be the result of something that can be supported logically, either inductively or deductively. But when we deal with, say, the story, we're getting something quite different. And maybe there's a feeling of anticipation. Maybe also what we want in the end is the kind of gratification from feeling like everything that I wanted to happen happened. The good guy wins. Evil is defeated. I now have an excuse to go outside again. I now have, say, a kind of like sense to say, yes, it is right for me to go out and live my life like I want to. In other words, it's just giving you what you want. It's providing you with that kind of like sense to say that you now have the kind of excuse or the kind of justification that you need, but it's not an excuse or justification built in logic. And what logic is supposed to do is to guide our actions in such a way where we are not always guided just by what feels right at the time, because we can be mistaken in between what feels like and what feels right and what is right. Now, course is not supposed to always do this. There's a flaw in Vulcan society that Vulcans keep realizing but keep forgetting for dramatic reasons, and that's that, say, life cannot be, say, justified in every single detail along, say, a logical diagram. That's just not how life it is. But if we have as a goal in life not to be misled, not to always be guided by our emotions, and not to do things based on, say, bad or flimsy evidence rather than good evidence, then logic is supposed to help us meet those ends. Logic is supposed to help us meet those ends. That's why when we do this class, the reason why we are looking at, say, these rather uh, dry and abstract ideas is not just for the sake of having a a much more sophisticated sense of logical procedure, but to see how logical procedure also meets with practical ends, also meets with fulfilling, say, what we want to get out of an action. And if we can even kind of like justify why that is, say, by saying, are we actually getting what we want out of our actions if we do not base it off of some kind of logical procedure, at least some of the time. And I think that, say, that much of it just becomes some kind of like so ingrained in us when we say that, I learned to do this. What is learning? Learning to do something means that you have managed to find a procedure for doing things that seems to meet both the situation and the outcome that you want to realize. That's what learning is. Learning is finding a kind of creative, a kind of like it's a creative and logical procedure. It's creative in the kind of sense where you have to kind of like invent, say, the right sort of guidelines. Let's say what makes those guidelines applicable to the situation is whether it is actually following through on your intentions, following through on what you want to achieve. Is there an actual way in which you can connect, say, what you expect to get out of the situation with what's in the situation and how to bring it out of it? Say, that's where we find, say, the key springs of logic. And so we are constantly doing this, but we can sometimes be overawed with our own success in learning. And we imagine that we are doing that same thing all the time, that we are actually meeting the situation with the right amount of creativity and the right amount of logical procedure, when in fact we are not. That's why we analyze logical procedure and see whether we can apply it in situations where we are dealing with big time stakes, whether we are dealing with a situation where, if we do not proceed through it in the best way that we can, with the most kind of like informed sense of what is going on as we can, and without being guided strictly by what we would like to be true or what we would like the outcome to be, kind of like that dramatic artistic arc that we get from a story. That we're not being just guided by these things, that we are not being deceived by these things. Then we can see why it is a very practical tool, because uh, as we are finding that we can get more and more of this world within our control, we still find so much of it outside of our control, largely through, say, the fact that as human beings we are very limited in what we can know and what we can do, even when we bring together so much of us and kind of coalesce and correlate so much of what we have learned so far. There is still so much that we cannot do individually or even collectively without kind of a high risk being involved when we face up kind of like what we don't know what the outcome will be. Just like when I was talking about earlier about the governor beginning the process of reopening the state. Slowly, yes, but still reopening it. And when I said this seems very risky to me, especially when we have to be concerned about, say, not only dealing with the health crisis as it is right now, with the present rate of infection, but what if we get a second wave of high infection? So, do we have, say, enough to meet that risk? Do we have enough to feel justifiably confident that we can move forward with this kind of sense of what we could be losing? Should we be as confident as we are, or are we doing this more as a matter of kind of like what we would hope to be true? And my own limited understanding, I think that's what we're doing right now. I think we're kind of like doing a little bit of wishful thinking in this regard. Understandable, of course. But again, I could be wrong in this. And I certainly do not hope to be proven right. The only thing that I hope to be proven right about is, say, how useful and important these things are. Because if they are, in fact, finding the right justifications for doing this, and I am wrong in my justifications based on, say, the evidence available, then the method is justified, and that means that I win anyway. So I'm happy about that. Okay, we really aren't getting that much in terms of participation in this chat. Well, this is still kind of my office hours, so I'm going to keep this going for as long as I can. We might call it early if absolutely no one joins in on the chat, but I don't think I'm justified in doing that quite yet. So I will be reading my book. Where are you, Kant? There you go. So right now I'm rereading Kant's Critique of Pure Reason. Say this is the for those in my ethics class when we were talking about, say, Kant on what are the preconditions for experience and understanding. This is the book that that most fully explores that part of his philosophy. Kant's most famous works are what are called his three critiques: the Critique of Pure Reason, the Critique of Practical Reason, and the Critique of Judgment. And say have I read all three of them? Yes, I have read all three of them. I couldn't remember to say whether I have read Critique of Judgment or not. Oh yeah, that's right. I did a couple of Sundays ago. Okay, so but say Kant is really bedrock for Western philosophy. So and you really say if you do this kind of stuff that I do, which is mostly in say modern philosophy, you really have to get as strong of a background in Kant as you can. So if you have a chance to reread Kant, you have to reread Kant. You should. So I will just be doing a little bit of reading, waiting for people to join in on the chat. Okay. Looks like Herodotus. If I can make it. There we go. Like a prop shot. Tell you what I'll do in order to make this just not dead air. I will read out loud from Kant. Okay, so we are in the Transcendental Logic right now. We are in section 14 of it. We are doing the transition to the transcendental deduction of the categories. All right, so this is how we're getting our categories of understanding. Okay, so here's Kant. Only two cases are possible in which synthetic representation and its objects can agree, can refer to each other with necessity, and can, as it were, meet each other. Either if the object alone makes the representation possible, or if the representation alone makes the object possible. In the former case, the relation is only empirical, and the representation is never possible a priori. This applies to appearances with regard to whatever in them belongs to sensation. In the latter case, though representation by itself, for we do not speak here at all of its causality by means of the will, does not produce its object so far as its existence is concerned. Nevertheless, the representation is a priori determinate of the object if through it alone it is possible to know anything as an object. There are two conditions then under which alone knowledge of an object is possible. Firstly, intuition, through which the object is given, though only as appearance. Secondly, concept, through which an object is thought the corresponds. Let me try that again. Firstly, intuition, through which the object is given, though only as appearance. Secondly, concept, or perhaps a little bit more clearly, secondly, as concept, through which an object is thought that corresponds to its intuition. From what we have said before, it is clear that the first condition, namely that under which alone objects can be intuited, does in fact underlie, as far as their form is concerned, the objects a priori in the mind. All appearances, therefore, necessarily conform to this formal condition of sensibility, because only through it can they appear, that is, be empirically intuited as given. Now the question arises whether concepts are not also a priori antecedent conditions, under which alone something can be, if not intuited, then nonetheless thought as object in general. For in that case, all empirical knowledge of objects would necessarily conform to such concepts, because without presupposing them, nothing is possible as object of experience. All experience also contains, besides the intuition of the senses through which something is given, a concept of an object which is given in intuition, or which appears in it. Concepts of objects in general thus underlie all empirical knowledge as its a priori conditions, and the objective validity of the categories as a priori concepts rests on this very fact that through them alone experience is possible, as far as the form of thought is concerned. If only by means of them any object of experience can be thought at all, it follows that they refer to objects of experience necessarily and a priori. The transcendental deduction of all a priori concepts has thus a principle to which our whole investigation must be directed, namely, the principle that these concepts must be recognized as a priori conditions of the possibility of experiences, whether the possibility of the intuition which is found in experience, or the possibility of thought. Concepts which form the objective ground of the possibility of experience are for this reason necessary. To unfold the experience wherein they are found, however, would not amount to a deduction, but to mere illustration, because they would otherwise be only contingent. Without their original reference to possible experience, in which all objects of knowledge occur, their reference to one object would be quite incomprehensible. Let me try that again. Without their original reference to possible experience, in which all objects of knowledge occur, their reference to any one object will be quite incomprehensible. I'm going to get some water. Be right back. Locke, meaning John Locke, the philosopher John Locke, for want of this reflection, and because he met with pure concept of understanding in experience, also derived from them experience, and yet proceeded so inconsistently that he attempted to use them for knowledge which goes far beyond all limits of experience. David Hume, remember David Hume, the person who woke Kant from his dogmatic slumber. David Hume realized that in order to be able to do this, these concepts must have their origin a priori. But as he could not explain how it is possible that the understanding must think concepts which in themselves are not combined in the understanding as nevertheless necessarily combined in the object, and as it never occurred to him that possibly the understanding itself might, through these concepts, be the author of that experience in which its objects are found, he was constrained to derive them from experience, namely from a subjective necessity that arises through frequent association of experience, and which in the end is mistakenly supposed to be objective. That is from habit. Now that's going a little far, I think, in for Kant's understanding of Hume. Hume didn't really claim to have founded, say, the reason for, say, the association of ideas as kind of like as being objective. That is to say, as say something that is must necessarily occur, because for Hume there would be kind of like no sense in which you could found that in experience, because that would require that, say, between, say, the associations that I am bringing together, some kind of necessary connection in the process of habit itself. And as far as Hume is concerned, we cannot derive any kind of sense of necessary connection from, say, habit, even when we're doing kind of like the habitual associations of objects in experience. So I think that's going a little too far for Kant's understanding. But, Kant goes on, but Hume proceeded very consistently, declaring it to be impossible with these concepts or with the principles arising from them to go beyond the limits of experience. The empirical derivation, however, which was adopted by both philosophers, cannot be reconciled with the scientific a priori knowledge that we actually have, namely the knowledge in pure mathematics and general natural science, and is therefore refuted by this fact. The former of these two celebrated men, that is to say, John Locke, the former of these two celebrated men opened the door wide to fantastic extravagance, because reason, once it has gained such rights, can no longer be checked by vague recommendations to moderation. The other, that is to say, Hume, thinking that he had discovered so universal an illusion of our faculty of knowledge, which had formerly been accepted as reason, handled him, handed himself over entirely to skepticism. Yeah, Cobb. That's what I was talking about earlier. Say why he wouldn't call it a kind of like a necessary objective process in habit. Handed himself over entirely to skepticism. We now intend to find out whether it may not be possible to find for human reason a safe passage between these two rungs, to assign to it definite limits, and yet to keep open for the entire field of its purposeful activity. Oh, good, we got someone. Someone's here. Someone's here at last. Gabriel's here. Hello, Gabriel. Hello, Gabriel. Thank you for joining the chat. Who else is here? We got 4 people now. How are you doing, Gabriel? All right, Nicole Tahu is here. Gabriel says, "Sorry, I'm late. I forgot about the live stream." It's okay. It's okay. Let's see. Gabriel's doing fine. I'm very glad of that. Very, very good. Okay. How was the quiz? How was, say, the 4th and final quiz? Yeah, I've got a lot of those things to grade this weekend. I'm doing okay. Gabriel asks, how am I doing? I'm doing pretty good. I finally have been getting a good night's sleep at last. Say I've been uh, for whatever reason. I don't say probably a combination of many different reasons. I have been not been getting very good sleep. Say these last couple of weeks, but now I finally seem to be doing better. Unfortunate that I'm finally getting it, say, at the end of the semester, but there you go. Gabriel says it was a little hard. Well, good. It should be a little hard. A little to medium hard is what that kind of quiz should be. Do you know if we've been having in-person class in fall? Also, you're doing well. I hope you're feeling okay. It's doing better. I don't need to have the band-aid on it now, and it is not half as bad as I thought it was. I think it's because, say, when I cut it with the cheese grater, there was just so much blood that I thought I took the whole kind of like tip of my finger off right here. But as as you can see, It's pathetic. It's pathetically small, the wound I had. It's smaller now because the wound has been healing up. But it was just embarrassing just how much of an ado I made out of it. But again, say it was bleeding quite a bit. It was just going everywhere. But about in-person classes, the plan right now, we have finally decided that we are going to be working on the assumption that we will not be having in-class in-person classes for the fall. This may change. This may change because it wasn't until at least until maybe like a couple of weeks ago that we finally said that we're going to be working under the assumption that we will not be doing in-person classes in the fall. But with the reopening of the state, this may change. Um, but there's no guarantee. But right now, all classes are going to be. Oh, excuse me, I had a big burrito for lunch. All classes right now are going to be remote instruction. So this is going to be this is what we're going to have to do right now. We instructors is that if we can, we have to we have to really bone up on organizing and conducting a remotely instructed course. Uh, I certainly need to do a much better job with it than I did this semester. Say, I think I was doing okay at the beginning, but because of personal issues and this, that, and the other thing, I think I really done a kind of like a piss poor job of it. So I apologize, I really do, for how things have wound up with the class. It's really kind of pathetic. Say how I've been handling it right lately. Now, granted, this is not something I've done before, so yes, we can give a little bit of leeway for that. But I do plan to do a lot better. Same, and I know that's I see a lot of my colleagues are saying the same thing. I can at least say that I'm not the only one who's been struggling. But we're all going to try to struggle better together come next semester. Okay. So this is going to be forcing a lot of people to really exploit what Canvas has to offer, including myself. I myself am constantly intimidated by doing these kind of things. But say at the end of the semester, I'm scheduled to do some modules in learning how to do remote class instruction, do some online class instruction. So that will get me hopefully what I need to do a better job next time. I thought I would do okay, kind of like doing a little bit more flying by the seat of my pants on this than I ended up actually doing. Okay, so I apologize for how the class has gone. Okay, do we have anyone else joining in? We've got 5 people now. Let me ask you this: end of the semester stuff. Do you have any questions or concerns about the group project for critical thinking or the philosopher of ethics report for the ethics class? Say, is there anyone here who is having difficulty staying in touch with their group, finding time to work on what needs to be done for the group project, or anything like that? Say, I was hoping that say in the time that we had to since this began, that people would be, you know, staying in touch and working on this. But say, it doesn't always work out that way, of course. You want to adjust to the new situation, so of course that's going to take you out of well, just kind of like out of the headspace you need to stay as a student. For the final report, do we just email it to me? Yes, that is correct. You just email it to me. You do not have to turn in a physical copy. And for the critical thinking folk, this was going to be a present. It was going to be a presentation that you would do in class as the entire group. Naturally, we're not. Well, we wouldn't be able to do that in class, and I thought that it would just be too much of a shit show, really, to try to get everyone to kind of like do an online presentation. So that's why it is now just going to be a turned in written report for the critical thinking group project. And that's going to be true for the ethics, a philosopher of ethics report as well for the ethics class. All you have to do is email me, say what you've written. No physical copies needed. Okay. All right. Thank you, Nicole. That's a very good question. Any other questions or anything else like that? Do, 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 do. Anyone else here? We got Gabriel, we got Nicole. Anyone else want to say hello? Let us know that you're doing okay. Anyone here? Anyone here can't wait for the semester to end? Anyone here can't wait for the semester end to end and to like find something like a relaxing summer? Yes. I unfortunately was not able to pick up any courses to teach during the summer, so I need to go on unemployment. Need to find a job. Gabriel is excited for that. That's very good, Gabriel. I'm with you. I'm entirely with you, Gabriel. We need we need this semester to end quick. But Gabriel is also going to have something. Well, at the very least, it's kind of like transitioning out of one thing. You know, we're finally closing the book on the semester. So even though you're moving into summer school, there should be kind of like that feeling of at least I'm going to have this behind me. That's a semester you'll never have to do again. That's an experience you never have to do again. Well, and that's something to consider too. That say for however long we have left to deal with the situation that we're dealing with globally right now, say the months that you went through, say that's behind you. They're done. They're part of history now. Okay, whatever you have to do, however long it's going to have to be, you do not have to do those months again. Even if you have to do the same amount or greater amount of months, it will not be those months again. It will be new stuff. There will be new situations. There will be new challenges, and that's the silver lining for me, folks. As far as I'm concerned, I like what Harlan Ellison said. He said that science fiction is inherently optimistic because even when science fiction imagines a bad future, it is still a future. It is still a future that we would be meeting and we would be challenged by. So, very kind of like sense that there would still be people to be challenged, people to meet a situation and to face it and to succeed or fail. It is still, say, something new for them to do. So I like that. I think I'm an optimist in that sense as well. There's a very uh, prominent philosopher. I'm going to point to his name over there. You can see the two books over there with the two very the volume with the black spine and the white letter, and the one with the white spine with the black letters. It stands out very much. The Jew. Say that is a very prominent current philosopher. And I like what he said too. That say that as a philosopher, you have to have a kind of like a sense of optimism, even kind of like in the most minimal way. The idea that there is still things to talk about, that there are still things to think, still things to learn, and still things to do that have not been done before. If you don't have that sense, says the Jew, then what is there left to do? If you are entirely pessimistic about everything, then what can be done? Really nothing. So insofar as you think that there are things, thoughts to be thought, thinking to be done, action to be done, you still have a sense of optimism and excitement about the future. I think, okay, Gabriel asks, say, have you seen the recent Chris Hemsworth movie called Extraction? The movie, yeah, I was going to ask to say whether this was the movie you were talking about. I have not had that yet, and the reason why not because we recently subscribed to Disney Plus, so we've been exploiting as much as we can out of that. But that is on my watch list, on my viewing list uh, for the summer. I have that written down to watch Extraction. So if it's available on some streaming service, perhaps I'll watch it then. In the meantime, I've just been enjoying, say, some quality uh, Disney animation, and some of the I like a lot of the movies that Disney made before their quote unquote renaissance of the late '80s and early '90s. I like the stuff when they were kind of like in their fallow years when they're making films like Blackbeard's Ghost and Campbell's Shoe. I much prefer them to Beauty and the Beast and Little Mermaid. Okay, all right. So let me. I think. Okay. Well, we've gone on for about an hour now. Doesn't seem to be that much participation in this stream. So I think we're going to close it out in an hour. Okay. Oh, Nicole also enjoyed Extraction. So she said it was action fueled. I think I'll enjoy that. I need something with a lot of, I like it. I like a good, solid, well paced, well produced, well directed, well acted action movie. I want it to move as speedily and efficiently as a well oiled machine. Something like Mad Max Fury Road. Where it is just pretty much a chase from beginning to end. Oh boy, is that a well done action movie. If it's something like that, that'll be great. Gabriel says, have I seen the Marvel movies on Disney Plus yet? Yeah, there are a few on there that I didn't see in the theaters. I haven't watched Captain Marvel yet, but I really don't have that much interest in watching Captain Marvel. I don't have that much interest in watching Doctor Strange. Pretty much all the movies that I wanted to watch in the Marvel series, I watched in the movie theaters. So yes, I know that your paper, your exam response invited me to rewatch them, but maybe down the road I will. Okay, Gradient Echo. Gradient Echo. Now, who are you, Gradient Echo? I like your name, Gradient Echo, and I like the fact that you have a kitty cat for your avatar. It says, I have a movie idea. Two friends get invited by their bosses to their boss's beach house for the weekend. The boss suddenly dies. Not sure what to name it. Very funny, Gradient Echo. Very amusing. Yeah, just a suggestion. Maybe the boss could be named Bernie. Okay. All right. Gabriel says that Extraction is an awesome movie with a satisfying ending. Just going to say that. Okay. All right. Very good. So you don't want to give away a lot of details. Okay. Nicole says, I noticed that they put a yellow color filter on the movie, and noticed that they do this with a lot of action and more movies when it takes place in the Middle East. This is true. This is very true. I can't remember who commented on this, but someone mentioned that they do this quite a bit, and also not just with the Middle East, but also with Mexico or places set in like Latin American countries, and it's to make the environment partly is to make the environment seem inhospitable or to make you feel really really uncomfortable in that environment. And it feels like that that everything is just so very hot and so very arid that no nothing could survive there, and so it feels like the characters are even more at risk. So yeah, it's a questionable practice. Uh, Does that relate to what we talked in my class about cultural relativism? Say the way they want to portray the places poorly. That's a very good question, Nicole. Um, let's say the cultural relativism kind of like is looking at things this way. Cultural relativism is operating with a kind of idea that all cultures are kind of like equal. There is no way to say whether one culture is better or worse than another culture. This would be kind of almost the opposite of that by saying that there are places, peoples, cultures out there that are somehow worse, or at least at least different enough from what you know and what you experience to warrant you feeling uncomfortable there. You say, ooh, something's not quite right over here. You know, ooh, everything's yellow or everything's blue. That's not how things should be. So it's kind of like playing. If it is related to cultural relativism, it might be related to it in this way, by the sense that say that everyone feels a little bit maybe more at home within, say, a certain culture, maybe their own culture, and that if things are deviating from that, then you could say, well, that culture is inferior somehow, or wrong, or something off about it. So it is maybe playing into cultural relativism in that sense. That cultural relativists, while they want to say broadly that there's no way of being able to judge a culture as being better or worse than another one, which of course makes on certain cases that just can't work because would you say the Nazis were just as good as anyone else? I wouldn't say that. But it can play it into this sense that say within the culture, you would say that since things are not like how I am familiar with them, since things are not as how I remember them and comfortable with and so on, that there must be something wrong there. That that I am right to feel uncomfortable in this environment. With how everything looks, how everything feels, and so on. So I think it is kind of like playing into that kind of like internal sense to a culture that something is wrong, something is not right, something is too different, too unfamiliar for me to feel like this is how things should be. What music am I listening to? We are listening to the jazz pianist Bill Evans and his group right now. I've been playing this since the beginning of the chat. Hopefully it is not hopefully it is not coming through distortedly or annoyingly. Grady, have you seen My Dinner with Andre? Ahead of its time, all conversation with my faves. I have not. I have not seen Dinner with Andre, but I've grown up with parodies of the movie much of my life, so it's almost feel like that I have seen it. But of course, you can't replace actually watching the movie. I really ought to see it. Wallace Shawn, I love Wallace Shawn, and say if you remember him from Princess Bride, the inconceivable guy, and the voice of the dinosaur in the Toy Story movies. He's an absolutely wonderful actor, and always a delight to see. Kenneth says, "Hello, Dr. McHugh. Hello there, Kenneth. Okay, we're fine. We're getting some people joining in. This is a good thing. I was actually going to call the stream early because for about 50 minutes or so there was almost no activity. Now we're getting some people in here. This is a good thing. So we can talk about movies if you like. I appreciate that Nicole brought in a question that was relevant to things that we talked about in our ethics class on cultural relevance. Um, yeah, the way that they depict other cultures in movies can be pretty bad. Even if even when maybe they think that they're presenting things in a very positive sort of light, it can come off as patronizing or condescending or worse. Okay. All right. So any other questions? Let me go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. But try to think up some questions that might have to do with say group projects for critical thinking, for the philosopher of ethics project, and so forth. Radiant Echo says Dark City. Dark City is a very, very good movie, and I much prefer it to the Metro. Be right back. It's got one of my favorite character actors in it, Ian Richardson. He is kind of the leader of the aliens. Okay, Gabriel says, are we going to do the final the same way that you turn in the project? Yes. The final will be entirely online. So on the day that you'll be turning in the project, May 21st, I would be making the actually I'm gonna make the final exam available early. I'm going to post the final exam on May 20th, and you guys will have from May 20th to May 22nd to finish it. And just like the midterm, I will be sending out a review for the final exam, and that review will also contain what the essay topics will be. And this will be true for the ethics course as well, for the ethics course and for the critical thinking course. I will be sending out a review review lecture notes for the final exam. I'll be sending that out a week early, so that means I will be sending it out on the I'll be sending it out on the 14th. I'll be sending it out on the 14th, and it will contain the topics for the essay portions for the final exam. That includes, say, the essay portions for the final exam for critical thinking, and the essay portions for the final exam for ethics. Those will be available a week early, and you will have from May 20th to May 22nd to do the final exam. I will have it sent out by email to everyone, and it will be available on Canvas. Okay, Gabriel asked, the final is due in the morning of May 22nd or the night of May 22nd? We're gonna make it the night of May 22nd. We're gonna make it 11:59 p.m. May 22nd. So the minute before it hits May 23rd. That will be the time. Oh, Nicole, did I miswrite the? You're welcome, Gabriel. Did I miswrite the? Did I have a typo in the sheet in the assignment sheet for the philosopher report, because it's supposed to be the life of the philosopher. Okay, if it says life of the philosophy, yeah, that sounds weird. It meant life of the philosopher. So I mean a little bit of the biography of the philosopher. Okay, so if that's a typo in there, then I need to resend it. Make sure everyone can see that what I meant was life of the philosopher, not life of the philosophy. That almost sounds like I want to say what is the legacy that the philosophy had in say its influence in the lives of people and so forth. Okay, yeah, life of the philosopher. So, life of the philosopher. So yeah, that's a if that's a typo on my part, then I'm going to resend it. It's supposed to be life of the philosopher. It's okay, Nicole. No, it's all right, Nicole. It's my fault. It's my fault for sending out, say, something that had a mistype in it. Okay, so it's not your fault at all, Nicole. It's my fault. It should be made as clear as possible for everyone. And if I don't use the right words, it's not going to be as clear as possible for everyone. And, I have to take into consideration the fact that many of our students are students for whom English is a second language, who are still learning English. And so I need to take that in consideration. So, it's not your fault, Nicole. It's my fault. My fault, not your fault. So, and thank you, Nicole, for bringing that to my attention. That is very, very good of you to do that. Okay. Let me just write these things down so I remember that. So, all right. So May 14th is going to be the day in which I will send out the final exam review. Final exam review. May 20th will be the day in which I will send the final exam out. May 22nd at 11:59 p.m. is when final is due. And I need to resend the corrected assignment sheet for the Philosopher of Ethics project. Okay. Include a very brief summary in your own words of the life of the philosopher. Yeah, that's a full sentence. Very good. Yeah, that's the sentence in question. Yeah, it should be summary in your own words of the life of the philosopher, of the person of the person doing the philosophy. Yeah, Goodfellas. That's a great, great, great movie. I love that movie. I love uh, most movies by Martin Scorsese. I don't think Scorsese's ever done something that I would call a bad film. He's done great films and films that I think are pretty good but aren't my favorites. But I don't think he's ever done anything bad, as far as I can tell. Okay. Okay, got it. You're very, very welcome, Nicole, and thank you very much for bringing that up. Okay. Yeah, I can think of, say, the ways that they shoot different countries, that they'll the way that they might present, um, say places in, say, Asia as being, just very, very, very crowded with, they'll just focus in on characters smoking a cigarette, say, looking shiftily, say, in an alley or something like that. It'll give you a kind of sense of, say, where you're going is not a good, safe place. So, there's a lot that they kind of like are hoping that we will just kind of like make the kind of like associations with it, with those kinds of things. I should see Dangerous Lies as well on Netflix. Okay, all right, I'll write down Dangerous Lies. That's on Netflix. Okay, all right, we're actually doing pretty good for time. Okay, so we are closing up the lectures that I did on Kant, and I'm going to be doing kind of like one more week of new material for the ethics course, and that will be on Aristotle's ethics. I won't be doing very much, but just enough to warrant having some questions about Aristotle's ethics on the final exam. Just like, what we're going to be doing, say, with the formal fallacies in the critical thinking class, but just enough to excuse having them on the final, some questions about them on the final exam. Having a lot of material to cover in class makes it easier for us, the instructor, to write these exams, or else we would just have to come up with a lot of ways of asking questions about the same topics. So the more topics we have to have on the final exam, the easier it is for us. So of course that doesn't make things very easy for you guys. That's the trade-off. Okay. So we'll be talking about Aristotle's virtue ethics, and we will be doing the fallacy of the indistributed middle, the illicit major and illicit minor for critical thinking. Okay. Would any of you be interested in my top 5 movies? Anyone be interested in knowing what my top favorite movies of all time are? Anyone be interested in hearing what those would be? Okay. All right. So Gabriel, I had a feeling Gabriel would say yes. All right. My top 5 movies of all time. Okay. So I'm not going to go in any particular order until the last one. The last one will be my all-time favorite movie. Okay. So the first one is going to be Mulholland Drive. And I'm going to type that into the chat right here. Mulholland Drive. And it's from I can't remember if it's from 1999 or 2000. And it's directed by David Lynch. Okay. That is the first one. Okay. The next one is going to be Emperor of the North Pole, sometimes called Emperor of the North. Emperor. And when was that? I think it's from 1973, something like that. No, so let's say 1970. That's directed by Aldrich. I keep forgetting if it's Richard Aldrich or Robert Aldrich. He also directed Kiss Me Deadly, The Dirty Dozen, The Longest Yard. God, he directed too many great movies. Hush Hush, Sweet Charlotte, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. All the great movies. He directed them. Okay, so Aldrich was the director for that one. Okay, so that's 2 down. Say another one is going to be Russian Ark. Russian Ark. And that is from the 2000s, sometime in the 2000s. And the director was Sukhorov. Sukhorov is the director. Directed by Sukhorov. Okay. Then there's going to be Okay, and this one's a lot of fun. If you watch none of these movies, I insist you watch this one, because this is just such a joy. This movie is Touch of Evil by Orson Welles. Orson Welles directed Touch of Evil. And let's see, 1950s. Can't quite remember. I can't really remember the date of movies all that well. But it's Orson Welles. Orson Welles. And it's the last movie he directed in the United States. Okay. I'm getting a phone call from someone by the name of William Welty. I have no idea who that is. Okay. So watch Touch of Evil. Touch of Evil, Touch of Evil is representative of my favorite film genre, which is film noir. This is one of the best, if not the best, film noir ever made. Also, you get to see Charlton Heston play a Mexican, and he's not the let's say there are plenty of actual people of Latin American descent in there playing Mexicans and Mexican Americans. But he is not the only person in there, not a Mexican playing a Mexican. Everyone talks about Charlton Heston playing a Mexican, but rarely do they talk about Akin Tamirov, who was from Baku, Georgia. He was, I think he was a mix of Georgian and Russian, and he's playing a Mexican too. He's playing the crime boss of this border town, this fictional border town called Los Robles. Now, this is a really really great movie. Orson Welles stars in it as well. He plays a corrupt sheriff. No, not a sheriff. He plays a corrupt police captain, and it is a really really great movie. Wonderful atmosphere. Say it's got Janet Leigh in it. Janet Leigh from Psycho, who got it in the shower in Psycho. She also has a very bad experience in a motel in this one as well. Poor Janet Leigh has the worst luck with motels. Okay, so she's in that as well, and so is Marlene Dietrich. Marlene Dietrich shows up for a few minutes and has some really really memorable scenes with her friend Orson Welles. Okay, so watch Touch of Evil. It's a really an unforgettable movie. It's it's very very famous. So you see the movie I have on here, Russian Ark. Russian Ark is very notable for being all done in a single continuous shot. A lot of movies go for that effect where they try to make it seem like it was all done in one shot, but really there are hidden cuts here and there. This movie this movie was actually done with just one long, continuous, feature length shot. No breaks, no cuts, from beginning to end. That's it. Touch of Evil is kind of what got this started. It's kind of what got it started with the idea that we can really kind of like stretch out the length of our shots. The Touch of Evil begins with a 10-minute continuous shot. And in film study classes, film school classes, and whatnot, they all say, "Oh, you mean something long, like a Touch of Evil shot that begins a movie." And they show you how you can begin where you can have, say, a long shot in a movie and not have it be tedious. Some movies where it's intensely tedious, like in Tarkovsky or Kubrick, where they want you to feel the kind of weight of time. Touch of Evil is different in that they have this long 10-minute shot where they're trying to kind of like build the tension because of the length of the shot. It's really, really superbly done. Okay, so we're 4 down, 1 to go. And the last one, as I said, is going to be my number 1 film. Okay, and I actually remember the date for this one. Okay, so this is the film, my number 1 film, my favoriteest film of all time. There you go. The film is called The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp. It's from 1943 and it's directed by Michael Powell. That is my all-time favorite movie. It has a lot in it that is very, very personally relevant to me. It will take a long time to explain why it has this very strong personal relevance. But beyond just that, I think that is the best film I've ever seen on the subject of friendship. Even about love. It's one of the best love movies I've ever seen. And friendship is a kind of love, but it is definitely the best movie I've ever seen about friendship. And another thing too is that a lot of people have been reevaluating Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo. They say, Vertigo, Hitchcock's Vertigo is kind of like on par with Citizen Kane. Orson Welles' Citizen Kane is the best movie ever made. I'm not a big fan of Vertigo. It's a great movie. I really enjoy it, but I'm not wild about it the way other people are. And to be a little bit of an asshole, I like to say, well, watch Life and Death of Colonel Blimp, because Life and Death of Colonel Blimp is the anti Vertigo. It is the flip side of the obsessiveness of the unhealthy destructive obsessiveness that goes on in Vertigo. So you're going to be seeing something similar in the Life and Death of Colonel Blimp when it has to do with um, say you know say everything kind of like revolve and coming back to this relationship to this woman and wanting say to have this woman back in your life even though you can't, and maybe even kind of like hoping that you can find some kind of replacement for them based on say a similar appearance and whatnot. But it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that. It doesn't go into the kind of like a really destructive levels of wanting to recreate or replace that person with the person that you find in Vertigo. It goes in a different direction, and I actually think that say it goes in a direction that is truer to the experiences of a lot of people, and I think done better as well. So, Life and Death of Colonel Blimp. Colonel Blimp is my favorite film. It's also a favorite film of Martin Scorsese's, the director of Goodfellas and of Wolf of Wall Street, The Irishman, and many another great movie. Colonel Blimp is my favorite movie, and probably if I were to kind of like put this on a scale, probably goes Colonel Blimp, then Mulholland Drive, then Touch of Evil, then Emperor of the North Pole, and then Russian Roulette. Oh, I didn't say what Emperor of the North Pole is about. Emperor of the North Pole is about hobos in the 1930s. It's about hobos trying to ride a train that where the conductor on this train is a sadistic hobo hater who doesn't at all mind if they kill a hobo if it means getting the hobo off their train. He actually takes a lot of sadistic pleasure in murdering and hurting hobos. And so there is a hobo hero who is going to ride this man's train all the way from Portland to Eugene or something like that, or from Eugene to Portland. I can't remember which direction it goes, but it's some distance on this kind of like a legendarily impossible to ride train, and just it really kind of like plays to the the interest that a lot of people had in this time of people living on the fringes of society and trying to kind of like carve out a sense of kind of like a community and stature for themselves, say on the fringes. So this was at a time when everyone was really kind of like dealing with a sense of loss of optimism in America. This was at the end of the 1960s, the end of the optimistic 60s. Say the Vietnam War had gone on for so long, it seemed like it would never end. People had kind of like given up on the idea to say that we could by maybe love alone change the world, and it became more of a kind of like a sense of, well, we'll just find an alternative. We'll drop out of what's going on right now, and we'll try to find say something that doesn't quite fit into the square community. And that's why there was a lot of interest in grifters and hobos and outcasts and those kind of things in movies in the 1970s. Okay. Yes, Gabriel, what is your top five? Let's hear what your top five is. And they are not what you think. Ooh, ooh. I don't know if what I think is what you think what I think it is, but we'll see what it is. Let's hear what your top 5 is, Gabriel. Reading on Gabriel's top 5 movies. The original Lion King. That's one of them. Oh, and is this in no particular order, Gabriel? Okay. All right. So this is going to be in no particular order. So first on the list is the original Lion King. Oh, that's right. I was trying to think original Lion King. That's right. They made a live action version of it not too long ago. Right. I thought maybe you meant something like Tezuka's Lion King. Tezuka's White Lion. The first Taken movie by with Liam Neeson. I've not seen any of the Taken films. Let's say the gray Liam Neeson films is how I think of it. Okay, so all right. So the first one that's high. If that's on your top 5 list, then uh, that's certainly recommended. So I'll see the first Taken film. Yeah, the list right now, Gradient, is Faye's movie. So Gabriel is giving us his top 5 movies. So far we have The Lion King, and we have the first Taken movie. So we're waiting on the next 3. And obviously, you see, this is what I thought would be on your list, Gabriel, and I guess it is obvious. Obviously, the first Fast and Furious movie. Alex says, "Hi, Professor. How are you doing? I'm doing pretty good. Right now, we're talking about favorite movies. How are you doing, Alex? Okay, so number 4, the first Fast and Furious movie. That's number 4 on Gabriel's list. Going in no particular order right now. All right, so the last one, or the last, the last 2. We still have 2 to go. Deadpool with Ryan Reynolds. Okay. All right. And what is the culminating one, Gabriel? All right. Alex says that they're doing all right. That's very good. Very glad. And Alex is going to give us their top 5 as well. I'm excited about it. Avengers Endgame. Okay. Well, I thought that one of the Avengers movie would be on there. I actually thought the first Avengers movie would be on your list, Gabriel. All right, but Avengers Endgame. Now, a lot of people said that, say, Avengers Endgame was not as well done as Infinity War. But would you say that the payoff that you get at the end of Endgame, you know, is where it really does it? Independent, say, of just kind of which one is the better movie, it's just kind of like maybe the emotional payoff. And see that's unfair to say that wouldn't have to do with whether that makes it a better movie or not. That's really important. The emotional payoff you get in things. Okay, so Gabriel's top 5 are Lion King, Taken, Fast and Furious, Deadpool, and Avengers Endgame. All right, my top 10 was Mulholland Drive, Emperor of the North Pole, Russian Ark, Touch of Evil, and The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp. Okay, so Alex is going to give us theirs now. Alex gives us Dead Poet Society, Infinity War, Gladiator, The Empire Strikes Back, and the animated Lion King. Okay, Alex, you and Gabriel have a little bit of overlap here, say, except that he chooses Endgame over Infinity War. But both of you have the I think it's 1992, 92, 93, 91, 90, early 90s Disney animated Lion King as one of your top five movies. All right, very interesting. Hakuna Matata. All right, very good. The Dead Poet Society. Okay. And Gladiator. Gladiator is something I remember watching in the theater and liking quite a bit. Um, Huddy Juddis says, "Oi, sup, man? Hello." I remember enjoying Gladiator quite a bit when I was in the theater. I watched it again recently, and it's really a spectacular looking movie, isn't it? Um, Ridley Scott knows how to put a good looking movie together. My favorite movie of his is Kingdom of Heaven, which is I don't think enough praise has been given to Kingdom of Heaven. I think it's an excellent movie. Okay, so Gabriel liked both Infinity War and Endgame, but say there was just something a little bit more in Endgame. Yes, today is Victory in Europe Day. That is true. Today is the so 1945. So we're talking. Trying to think of 75 years ago was, say, victory in Europe against the Nazis, and that is something we're celebrating. Okay, Gradient Echo. And who are you, Gradient Echo? Who are you in our class? Um, Gradient Echo says Donnie Darko, Triplets of Belleville. Ooh, Night of the Roxbury, Escape from New York, and Starman. Oh, okay. We got two John Carpenter movies on there. Say Starman, I is not talked about all that much. Excellent, very good. And Triplets of Belleville, that's definitely one of my favorite animated films. Yeah, I'm a little embarrassed that my list does not include many animated films because I'm oh, Gradient's not in my class. It's just movie lover. Oh well, thank you for joining us, Gradient. Um, you just found the live stream. All right. British flags in Britain is becoming increasingly rare, especially in London, as white people come in our day. Okay, Duddy, get the fuck off my screen. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of you right now. Okay. Let's see. Okay, Gradient. Well, thank you for joining us. Yeah, this is a stream that we're doing for two classes over at Fullerton College in Fullerton, California. So thank you for joining us. I apologize for assuming that you're one of my students. Okay, see if I can get rid of this jackass. Okay. All right. So, gentlemen began saying some rather racist things on here, so I don't care for that. Okay. No, no, don't you worry, Grady. We're at the end of the semester, and we're kind of like in the wrap up period right now. Um, say this is more so that if anyone, this is kind of like outside the normal lectures right now. This is actually kind of like my office hours. That if anyone has any kind of questions that they want me to go over for the class material that we're doing, this is the opportunity they have to talk about it. So we just began talking about movies just because say there was not much else being talked about. All right, Alex. Alex says that they have to go because of their homework. I appreciate that, Alex, and thank you very much for joining us. And actually, I think we might call it an end to the chat right now. You know, so I was a little put off by this person talking about, say, the fact that, say, flags, British flags now becoming a rarity because of the, say, the shrinking white population in England. Ooh, I know which way this is blowing. I know which way the wind is blowing right here. So, yeah, yeah, fuck off. No, sir. No. Okay. All right. So I'll be calling it a close. Say thank you very much for joining us, and thank you, our special guest, Gradient Echo, for joining us on the stream. Maybe we'll see you again next time. All right, and take care, Alex. Take care, Gabriel. Take care, Kenneth. Take care, Nicole, and everyone else who joined us. Have a very good day, and I'll be seeing you.